Okay, coming off an off week, which was much needed. We evaluated all three phases like I said we would. It was really good for us to kind of get back to the basics. It was really good to heal up too. Two of the guys you'll hear from, John Rice and Ricky Barber, will both be back, which is really good for us. Looking at an Oklahoma team, number 6 team in the country, one of the best teams in the entire country on their home field, a great environment. You look at their offense, I think they're number 6 in the country offense. Dylan Gabriel, which we know well, obviously an outstanding quarterback. He's playing at a really high level. They got a good run game too. Defensively, one of the better defenses in the country. Good challenge. They got really good players. They got a good scheme. Their head coach went against him. We went against each other numerous times. We knew each other well. So it's a good challenge for us, but one we're looking forward to. And like I said, coming off the off week, our practices were really good. I really feel like, the 3 practices we had last week, we got better each practice. Our guys had great spirit about them. We had a really good practice yesterday just to get a little head start, on Oklahoma. Questions?
Coach, obviously the run defense has struggled in the Big 12 games. What have you identified specifically that stands out to you for why you've had so many problems there?
Yeah, there's a couple things. There's a couple scheme things that we'll definitely clean up that will be addressed. Like I said, anytime you have an off week, you're able to go back and you're able to evaluate everything. Position-wise, maybe you'll see some guys a little bit different in some different positions, but really just scheme-wise and just our approach to certain things should help us tremendously in our run fits and our run defense.
Guess you mentioned John Rice coming back this week. Is he 100% and will he start?
Yeah,
for sure? And is there any opportunities, maybe Timmy, that we will see Timmy on the field as well?
Yeah, he will start for sure. He had a good week last week. Really, last night was really the first time I really took a look at kind of where he's at. I'd say he's close to 100%. So don't expect any issues moving forward. Timmy obviously will be ready to go. Did a really good job for us. He'll be ready to call upon. But right now, John Rice is he's our quarterback and ready to go.
Coach, what are some things that you're focused on going into this week, heading into Oklahoma, where you make sure the guys are kind of locked in and not getting too focused on everything else going on?
Yeah, really it's more about kind of getting back to the basics, getting back to who we are offensively, defensively, and special teams. I know it's been really good for our coaches, which usually that's the case, because you get so wrapped up in your opponent and scheming. And for the first time, you can really look back and you can watch every rep on all 3 phases. There's some glaring things that we need to improve on that we're addressing, which will give us the best plan moving forward. I'm excited about the second half. I'm going to bet if you ask most of our players, they feel the same way. It was kind of one of those really be able to push pause, kind of refresh, regroup. Like I said, I still think we have a good team. We just need to play good football, and I think we're ready to do that.
What makes Dylan Gabriel so good?
Well, he's got an outstanding skill set. You talk about a guy that, when we had him every day in practice, he would make a throw that you'd go, wow, his accuracy. He's a veteran guy now too. Think about all the snaps he's played. You can see when you're watching him on film, he's got really good command. He knows when to throw the ball away. He's got great courage. He'll wait till the last second and get the ball out. And then you talk about the RPO world. They're good at running the football, but he's also good at reading it. So really, it's all the above with him.
Coach, have you ever played against a former quarterback before?
I don't know in college if I have, but like I said, he's an outstanding quarterback.
Just having the bye week, especially after the way the Big 12 season started, what ways did the team leaders kind of help refresh and reset the team? What are the ways that you guys really focus on? Well,
I think obviously spending time together in the off week and be able to slow down and not have to worry about an opponent has been really good. We went 1-on-1s against each other. Really more than we have all the way back to fall camp scrimmage, and that has a way of really bringing teams closer together too. So I think it was a combination of those 2 things.
Coach, you talked about the importance of the bye week for evaluating all three phases of your team. You said you saw some glaring areas for improvement. I guess what are, in your mind, the top areas that this team needs to improve upon? Looking at the
Yeah, I don't want to incriminate us too much about getting specific, other than there was a couple things that really stood out that you just kind of go, okay, we're going to address that, we're going to address that, we're going to address that. Obviously, our run defense, that was one of the number one things. And then it was penalties on offense, and really probably just the basic overall execution on offense. That was really what stood out big picture wise. And then you look at certain areas, red zone defense, red zone offense. How can we improve in those areas? And so those are really the big picture areas that, just from a head coach's standpoint, making sure that we're better moving forward.
You guys should talk about how does the guys come back who are banged up and injured. Overall health of the team, how much have you seen?
I would say right now, halfway through the season, I think we're in good shape. There towards the last couple weeks, I mean, we were just kind of hanging together, which that's to be expected. There's a lot of other teams in college football that halfway through the year the same way. Really hoping that our offensive line, I think we're really close for our offensive line to all be healthy. That'll definitely help. I think we're getting closer to getting 5 guys, keeping them one position, getting that continuity. Defensive line, I think we're healthier there. And I think that's where it really starts.
Linebacker has been one of those positions that's been a struggle, maybe besides Jason Johnson. Now you got some DNs that have some linebacker experience. In the bye week, do you talk about maybe moving guys around and moving positions of guys? Yeah,
you could see some different things. Like I said, I don't want to say or incriminate exactly what we're doing moving forward, but we evaluated all those things. And I think one thing too that also stood out is special teams. There's a couple guys that hadn't helped us up to this point on special teams that'll have a chance to help us on, and that could equate on offense and defense playing a little bit more than maybe they did, if any at all, the first 6 games.
From a mental toughness standpoint, what do you need to see from your team this week?
Mental toughness, I think it all works together. Physical toughness, mental toughness, that's really what we pride ourselves on. You got to play good quality football, and obviously the last 6 quarters were not up to our standard. But I expect us to cure that and moving forward and be better in those areas.
Now you've had a few weeks of Big 12 football under your belt. There's been one of the newbie teams who's now won against one of the existing teams. What's kind of been your impression on the level of Big 12 play and kind of how these new teams are adjusting to the league?
Yeah, well, first of all, there's quality teams. Every week you're going to go against, quality players, really in all positions. You're going against good depth, and you're going against good coaches. And so I really think it's all the above. You got to play really good football to win games in this league. We knew that when we came in, and that was really our approach. We've got to start playing good football.
Coach, in your experience, going into a game like this one, probably a lot of people outside the building not giving you a chance. Is it a bit harder to coach the guys, kind of get them up and going, or a little bit easier because you really don't have much to lose?
I think from the standpoint of what we went through and having an off week and be able to kind of push pause like we talked about earlier, and then you turn on the film, I mean, you got respect for them in all 3 phases. This is one of the best football teams in college football, okay? I think everybody knows that. And it's a big challenge for us, but it's a challenge I know our players and our coaches are looking for. Me personally, I'm very excited. I mean, I'm excited for our team and excited for the opportunity.
We'll hear from Ricky in a little bit, but what kind of impact does his return have on the defense, as much on the field as it does emotionally?
Who's that?
Ricky?
Yeah, I mean, he's one of our best players. I categorize him as an impact player. He can impact the game, with his pass rushing ability, with his ability to play the run, and he's one of those guys that makes everybody around him better. So to have him back, and I'd say, like I said earlier, I mean, John Rice is close to 100%. I think Ricky is too, after just watching him practice yesterday. And that'll be 2 really big keys, I think, to our overall team, having those guys back healthy.
You mentioned offensive line getting close to 100%. At center, what is the situation there? Is it Caden Kittler's job if he's healthy? I know Drake started there and Bula was banged up a little bit.
Bula's done some really good things. And really it was all about his snaps there for a while, but he's been snapping the ball extremely well. I thought Caden Kittler did a really good job when he's in. He's still probably not 100% right now, but he is getting closer. And then Drake, you know, really starting to settle in a little bit more guard. He is capable of playing center, but I think that fits him a little bit more, you know, with not have to have the stress of snapping the ball and everything that goes with that.
Gus, RJ and Johnny have carried the load in the running backs room. The rest of the guys in that group, you talked about that before the season started, how deep this unit was. What's been their status? They haven't given a lot of snaps over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that when you got somebody like RJ and Johnny, you know, especially Johnny, you're sitting there from an offensive coaches saying, well, how can they get him the ball? How can we get him the ball more? Both those guys have done an outstanding job. That's nothing against the other guys. You could see the other guys play a little bit more. We'll see. Obviously, those two guys have stayed healthy too. So there'll be a little more specific plan as far as that moving forward. But we do have 2 or 3 guys that if something did happen or need to play more, we have a lot of confidence in. We said that the very first of the year. I mean, that's one of our deepest positions. We knew it. We've stayed healthy so far. But those 2 guys are impact players. I mean, they're you know, averaging good yards, you know, when they touch it.
Coach, just talking about the health, getting the guys on the field is one thing, but how do you keep those guys on the field to kind of try to make a run at this thing for the second half of the season?
Yeah, I mean, I think that works hand in hand. I mean, you know, now we're healthier at the midway point. Good. Now we got to stay healthy, and I think it's just a matter of managing your body, managing your mind, and then having a little bit of fortunate things happen, staying healthy.
You mentioned a reset button. What do you need to see from your team in fundamentals like tackling at this point in the season?
Well, I think that last week was really kind of good to go back and kind of go back to the fundamentals that you just said. Slow down a little bit, focus on tackling, not just tackling, but on special teams tackling. A lot of times the offensive guys, you know, in practice every day don't get a chance to tackle. So that was good to do that. And a lot of times it's just good to go old school against each other. Being able to run the football, you know, fit the run on base offense, base defense, same thing against each other. And it was really good, and we got after it. If you ask the players, I'm going to bet they felt really good about last week, about just kind of going old school, back to the basics, and that really will help us moving forward, I believe.
What's your personal history with Oklahoma? I know you were at Tulsa. Did you play Oklahoma at that time? And Brent Venables is their head coach. Any back and forth there? Yeah,
when I was at Tulsa, I guess in 2007, we played Oklahoma at Tulsa, and Venables was the defense coordinator. You know, I got family in Tulsa. I went to first and second grade in Tulsa. My mom's family's all from there. We grew up, you know, probably going to a game a year, watching OU play back in the day. So very familiar. My stepdad he was a big Boomer Sooner fan. He's from Oklahoma City, so I dealt with that growing up. But I know a lot about it. I've been there, never as opposing coach, but as a spectator. Took some of my high school players to recruiting. Matter of fact, Rhett Lashley, I took Rhett to a recruiting visit one time in Oklahoma, so always impressed with their atmosphere and everything that goes with it, their tradition. So it's good to be a head coach on the opposing sideline.
So were you an OU fan growing up, like going to games, like as a little kid and stuff?
No, I was more of a Razorback fan,
okay,
you know, growing up. But you know, Marcus Dupree, some of the great players, I was probably more fans of some of those great players. But no, I was a Razorback through and through, okay, growing up.
Physically, JRP was said to be about 90% going into the last game. How do you kind of get him to trust his body mentally?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I don't know if it was 90%. I think that's kind of what I was hoping. It is a matter of him going through practice every day and getting that trust. And I think he'll talk to you here in just a minute. But you know, he's really close to 100% now, and it's been a process. I mean, you know, when it first happened, you know, there was questions that night whether he's going to be back to play at all. Then it was 6 to 8, and then all of a sudden he was doing well, and then it was 4 to 6, and you know, it's been a process. And he's a great competitor. He's worked extremely hard to get back, and I'll say this: I mean, he was real excited after last night's practice, and I was too.
Coach, you mentioned in the fall about going over situational football. Maybe you put a huge emphasis on those because you know you'll be in close games.
Yeah.
Has there been a tweak to that based on like the first 4 games?
Yes. There's a couple areas that obviously end of the game scenarios. We won the first one, and then of course we didn't win a close one, and so we just evaluated that. We worked specifically on some things that will help moving forward.
Gus, you had Dylan for a season. Is there any advantage that you have knowing a little bit of some of his ins and outs that maybe you can study this week and get forward?
You know, I mean, he was with us, you know, for 3 games, and you know, we were one of the top offense in the country at the time, and then he got hurt, and then so you know, I really don't think so. I mean, I just think that he's an outstanding quarterback, one of the best in the country, and every week you can turn on the film, you can see why.
Their offense, what makes it a struggle? And you know, UCF people are familiar with Jeff Levy, the offensive coordinator, obviously.
Well, they got good players. They got a good scheme. I think Jeff's an outstanding coach with the quarterback, you know, and they play fast. They run the football and they throw it. You know, they can do both well, and they got really good players. So I think it's a combination of all those things.
As you look back on the first half of the season, how much of those self-inflicted wounds played a role game after game?
Too many. I mean, too many for my liking, and that's, you know, it was when we were watching it, going through, like, okay, this will be addressed, that'll be addressed, that'll be addressed. We'll be better in the second half in this area, that area. So really, that's the way I approached it. Okay, thank you all.
Thanks.